Can you beat Ghost of Tsushima with only ranged attacks? No, not even slightly. If we ignore all of the scripted melee kills, then there are still the duels to consider where you have absolutely no choice in the matter at all. But I still want to play the game, and a surprisingly high number of people apparently want to see me suffer, so I'll offer you this. If you're willing to overlook a blatant disregard to ranged conflict resolution where the game gives you absolutely no choice due to story reasons, then I'll give you something far more difficult in every way. Good? Sound like a deal? Alright, let's get into it. The game centers around one Jin Sakai, a samurai born and bred. He is home besieged by a foreign threat, both in the sense of their origin and their customs. They are, as his uncle would put it, without honor. Brutal, cruel, most importantly, efficient. The initial horse combat is entirely ignorable, but it falling to the conflict is not. Luckily, my uncle and father figure is here to protect me. And by protect me, I of course mean hard carry. I don't have to lift a finger to progress across the beaches. No, I had to do far more, as they were rather insistent. No. 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 I don't want any. No. No, sir. 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 I thought I'd bested the AI by climbing simple geometry like in most games, but again, they were rather insistent. Ha-ha! Oh no. Oh god, they figured it out! After he finishes out killing the enemies attacking us, we go on the offensive just long enough to fail miserably. Jin desperately clings to the idea of using a sword, and it ends in him getting a couple of tastes of what's to come, delivered by Stick Flinger to the back. We then get to really sit for a moment with a villain that I think is just fantastic. This game is dark, sometimes very much so, and while he borders on cartoonishly evil, he also functions swimmingly in it. Like his every word, his every choice, his very breath drips with just how cold he truly is. No means is too horrible to reach his ends, no bridge is too far. I'm convinced that this man would do anything within his power to send a simple message. He's here to get results, and nothing is going to get in the way of that. The fact that they could frame, again, a cartoonishly bad person in such a way that it instead comes off as intimidating is lovely. I think the devs have done a fantastic job with some of the character work, and similarly, the voice work is often phenomenal. I awoke from near death as though it were a horrendous dream, yet somehow it appears that the mind simply couldn't fathom something worse than the truth. Shortly after, I'd meet Yuna, arguably my closest companion through the journey, and the person that scraped my sorry self off the beach. She'd guide me through a stealth tutorial of sorts, while also slowly encouraging me to maybe not give away our position in trying to start fights that we absolutely cannot and will not ever win. After finding my sword, I'd get a dream sequence where I would have to do some mandatory melee combat. But look at the leaves! That's so cool! It's so pretty! Nah, but it's a pretty standard tutorial affair, nothing all that special. It did end out with my uncle not only fighting me in a sparring match where I refused to even draw my sword, but, well, apparently he was really eager to beat me up, and then I had to fight this guy. And this next section of the game has a lot of mandatory conflict, but again, if you just want my pain, then I'll make it up to you, just not yet. So sword, followed by Yuna's bow. I found out that Yuna saved me so that I could save her brother, and I said not until I saved my uncle Shimura, who was captured earlier on the beach. I'm sure this is gonna go well. I was forced to do a standoff with a guy before fighting a bunch of other guys. For some reason it's only after the initial few that she joins back in and begins doing some of, or rather all of, the heavy lifting. Jin did choose eventually to soldier on alone though, which meant more rule breaking, which always feels lovely, before reaching the big guy. And this is a mandatory duel. No ranged weapons allowed whatsoever, even if I had them. This one I do have to lose against, but this won't be the last duel, and for some reason he has moves in it that he doesn't use later down the line. Not sure why, but after he thoroughly defeated me and tossed me over a bridge, I'm once again remarkably fine, got to re-experience the death of my father that I kind of blame myself for, but he also was facing directly away from the enemy, so it's not like his odds were that great anyway. But fact of the matter is that he's gone, and so I was left to the care of my uncle, who was pretty hell-bent on raising me to be exactly what I was expected to be, and nothing more or less. Back in present day, he was reflecting on his actions simply not being enough. Something about him versus thousands of potential foes just didn't work out either time, but at least the magical wind would be here to guide me instead of a more standard HUD. One of the few decisions I actively opposed for this game. I really would have liked an option for something more tangible. But if anything was really going to guide the man, it'd be Yuna. She's a survivor at heart, pushing him toward the I did what I had to mentality. A potentially dangerous justification, but a powerful one for change when held in benevolent hands. Either way, I'm in need of allies, and weapons that can deal some damage when not in close proximity to foes. While she agreed to be of aid if I can help with the brother situation, this man would help me with both sides of the issue. After realistically next to no training at all, he'd let me loose upon the world much like a knocked arrow. Unsteady, and yet barreling toward my destination nonetheless. If you've never seen one fired in slow motion, then I suggest you look into the Archer's Paradox. They're realistically not very precise weapons compared to most weapons. While he was really helpful to have around, and an actual weapon was incredibly welcome, ammo was also a severe issue. I'll be able to upgrade both capacity and damage in time, but not particularly quickly. For now, fleeing will remain a close friend and a common strategy. Bow in hand, I was able to finally aid Yuna. Right after a mandatory assassination, and also a beautiful piece of animation briefly showing the thoughts and feelings going through Jin's mind. I get a little war crime as a child soldier, and I get back to present day where nobody's telling me that my trauma is a good thing. Thanks for that, uncle. As a general rule, it was smarter for ammo reasons to let the AI handle encounters when they were available, but that wasn't always an option. Truth be told, I was a pretty long way through the game before finding out that allies can actually go down. There were times, though, that I'd simply have to settle things for myself. It's a shame that I'm not a better shot. After clearing the place out and saving not her brother, we did at least find some information on more potential allies in the person that we rescued. The story would occasionally check in on our antagonist and bad role model through some rather strange transitions that would often leave me without subtitles for reasons of which I'm unsure, but they were still great at making the villain feel far more omnipresent than they actually were. Between missions, I would gather resources, collectibles, and all manner of things to make things go a bit more smoothly. For the low cost of all of my ammo on hand, including ammo I'd pick up in the area, I also found myself chasing after a good handful of side quests, because the game is fun, and the world is fun to be in. While your allies are few, the game does give you a pretty reasonably large amount of time to explore their stories and flesh them out. While I didn't love a lot of the side characters, it did feel like there was more time getting to know people than in Halo Reach. The Archer, for instance, spends a lot of time lying and teaching really bad students. His last one joined the enemy and is apparently a prodigy with a bow, so she needs to be hunted and stopped. Someone should really do that. Someone that has more time. He did help me with a pretty important discovery, though. Oh, he's dying. I thought you were immortal. Oh, we're screwed. Following up on some legends, I would quietly clear out many a foe that would otherwise pose a risk to my health and safety. Stealth archery is fun in general. So much so that they really should make a game about it and then re-release it over 10 times while making no meaningful improvements to it. That'd be a great decision, and weirdly somehow still a profitable one. At the end of the side quest would come a duel. The first one I'd have to genuinely engage with if I wanted to continue this route. The first time I knew for sure that there would be places that I just couldn't do things by the rules, and so I left. But of course, you can't run from those forever. We'll get back to that. My next ally would come in the form of a woman whose family was assassinated. For better or worse, her whole character is more or less the noble woman who's really angry about the whole, backstabbing business. And I don't blame her. For all I know, she gets better later, but I didn't see much else personally. Make no mistake, Masuko's voice work is great, but her character spends a lot of the game running at conflict screaming loudly. So, while clearing out a little outpost, I got another duel. I wanted to be able to enjoy my time with the game, and much like Sony, these kept popping up trying to thwart that. So, what can be done about it? Well, what if, while in my armor that gives me the minimum upgrades to melee combat in any capacity, holding no charms that help melee combat, and also no upgrades to my melee weapons, what if only then do I allow myself to duel? No melee techniques, no skill points spent on them outside the first mandatory one that gives a dodge roll. Right now, it's not that bad. But if I'm being honest, it was a significantly more painful decision to have made than anything else I did during the run. It was substantially harder than the main challenge, and trust me, we'll get to that. This game is so pretty. I did go back to engage with some non-mandatory duels, because while this may be heretical for the purpose of challenge, well, refer back to the beginning. I wanted to actually play the game, and there's a pretty big chunk of it that's stuck behind these. Despite having a legendary move in his arsenal, he wasn't particularly difficult, and the only time I would use one is this time where the game forces your hand. To advocate for myself for a minute, though. Okay, loophole. I didn't kill this man. I did not kill him. I was just waving around a stick, and he died. I did not kill this man. I still did damage via melee. No, the sky did damage. The sky killed him. Alternatively, having control over the weather, I killed him via lightning, which is a ranged attack. I took some time to help a grieving mother. The help was more often moral support than physical support, but I was here nonetheless. The same can't be said for these bears. They were awesome and I loved them. I picked up a rumor surrounding some new stuff, which led me through a lot of flowers and flower-related hunting. Overall, gorgeous, but the quest wasn't incredible, or at least that is up until finding this lady here. Again, not a mandatory duel, but she blocks off access to a set of armor that buffs bows. I won't really be using it, but I wanted to have it as a sort of backup. To clarify, I did briefly, but it felt maybe a touch too strong. Not using melee made learning on the fly rather difficult, but fun. The melee is just fun overall. In some ways, it functions like a simplified Sekiro, but it's so flashy. There were a few moves from her that I struggled with more than is even remotely reasonable, but this is largely due to the fact that my reaction times are incredibly slow. Fittingly, afterwards was an archery challenge of sorts. You don't really need to play it that way, but it's a lot more fun if you do. Loads of enemies coming to attack and kill a guy that you have to defend, and many of which approaching from different altitudes and levels of cover, both at a distance and close up. All around, a good time. At some point along the way, I unlocked sticky bombs, which are great for managing small groups of foes. They're also fun for single target, but that is admittedly a waste. Even better though were the black powder bombs that I unlocked. They send me flying, but damn do they have some clearing power. With some charms that provide health on kill, they also weirdly represent a substantial pop of health at my fingertips. The damage they output is also both substantial and beautiful. You'll love to see bombs getting some of their well-deserved respect. After a long while, I found a close friend of Jin, who's become the leader of a small group of men who are mostly out looking for food, usually acquired by at least vaguely moral but overall violent methods. They don't seem all that good at finding employment though, which feels a bit odd as they're more or less the only group in the game's main path that seems to be really hurting for food. Sure, you find people starving here and there, but not large groups, and there are a fair few settlements that seem to be doing relatively alright, and even enough that they could probably feed a few more mouths. While talking with chat though, I did utter words that, well, I knew they were said in irony, but I underestimated just how much I'd come to regret them. It'll probably be fine. How difficult can the duels possibly get? Think you could maybe lay the foreshadowing on a little thinner next time, please? So we descended upon the enemy under the rain and through the mud, to take back the food that was stolen by any means necessary. After a whole lot of killing though, and I mean, there was a pretty hefty number of deaths in the locale, we basically didn't look around at all for supplies, concluded that there was no food here, and we needed to seek their boats that they said they were keeping food on via note. Fun stuff. You'd be amazed just how easy it is to take multiple boats from the enemy. They do a really poor job of covering themselves, and frankly, if the boards to cross weren't present, it would have at least been a mite more challenging. There also was an abundance of ammo just laying around the place, so I could do things like this. Don't all group up near me, I have no way to deal with that whatsoever. I love the slow-mo blow myself up animation, it's great. Oh no! After finding my buddy about to die, he had the audacity to unironically pull in "I could have beaten him if you didn't step in," just in time for the incredibly flammable ship with maybe all of the supplies that we needed to stave off the men's starvation went down to the bottom of the waters. Jin wasn't done trying to help though. Ryuzo was desperate to get things done, but, well, pride cometh before the fall. Maybe if he just would have accepted outside help, things could have been different. In between missions though would come word of a legendary bow. I've been using a half bow this whole time, and by God I'm gonna find the other half. It was mostly running from point A to B, finding little clues as to the next location. There's some legend of a curse surrounding the weapon, someone trying to dissuade me from using it, and what I can only describe as a drug-fueled fight in an arena full of birds constantly spiraling around us as we fought. I'm not gonna show it because it was honestly a lot of visual noise. Was it gorgeous? Yeah, but I think it might bother some viewers. While I'm not personally sensitive to that sort of thing, it was genuinely hard for me to focus, and so between that and just being bad, the fight took probably over an hour or so. Trust me, you're not missing out on anything all that important that we won't cover later. With it added to my arsenal, and the explosive arrows that I unfortunately almost never used on purpose, I was finally ready to come help my compatriots with the whole saving family thing. Kenji's plan? Hide me in a cart while he delivers drinks to the enemy. Luckily, he kept aggressively whispering loudly while near them to make sure that they wouldn't hear. Truly, a master of stealth. Luckily for me, killing people within the stealth section is fine as long as I'm not being spotted more directly, so I could clear out enemies along the way for the sake of convenience. On the other hand, that did lead me to getting really overzealous about it, so it was a mixed bag. After finding her brother, we basically just ran, completely ignoring all of the other prisoners that they've taken, which feels both cruel and rather unusual. Like, there weren't that many more enemies in that camp versus any other. I'm not sure why fleeing was the play. And I'm not really sure if it's funny or kind of dumb, but a following side quest with him was once again hiding in place of drinks. I'm not opposed, but there's something funny about it working twice. Like most, though, the rest of it was very murdery. Jin's first solution isn't always violence, but it is always on the list. I did eventually find Yuna again, picking off enemies from the comfort of a rooftop. Any excuse to save my own ammo is probably an excuse worth taking. We go back and forth a bit as to what would be the best course of action, but both decide that we need the forge here. From her brother, who's also a blacksmith, I need a grappling hook. Weapons and armor for the people are also nice, but Jin is absolutely getting more bold. At the beginning of the game, he was willing to fight God with 2 holes in his back because he lost all hope of making it out the other side. But now he knows that he can, and he must. We lit up the forge, billowing smoke into the sky as a declaration of our location. A simple message that we aren't afraid to work in the daylight. Come all who may, you will find your end flung out of hand's reach. For though my clothes may be stained by the mud I roll through, I wouldn't think to sully them with something so low as your blood. The narrative gets a bit confused as to how I handle things, given that realistically I'm mostly just an archer in function. But also, this would be the beginning of the Ghost, the name that would save a nation, that would fuel the dreams and aspirations of the oppressed. You can't be there for everyone, but a legend, why that can spread like fire. I was given a fairly simplistic, but also really heavy grappling hook. On the one hand, I appreciate that you can clearly see how it was made. On the other, he's been built up to be an incredible blacksmith only to produce something that, well, it's really not all that special. Apparently my buddy has been having a rough time of things with his men getting put into cages, and me now having the ability to swing from things sounds all too easy to slip in and save them. Given the previous work of the devs, it's not surprising that moving around is fun, but this was a welcome addition. Helps round things out a bit. While working at it, I accidentally freed a bear. I probably would have either way, but it would have been nice to notice before I acted. As the game went on though, enemies became slightly more sophisticated, with better shields, more common shields, armor, tactics, and it was only a matter of time until I ran into something even stranger. They got bombs too! That's not fair. That was my thing. Oh my lord! That did a lot of damage. For some reason though, the dudes that I rescued came out of their cages and they've been feeling just fine because they're still armed. And they've apparently been fed really well while in captivity. I understand that an army marches on its stomach, but talk about a transparent bid for the loyalty of not only these men, but their desperate leader. With reinforcements arriving from the outside though, they were planning on executing a pincer maneuver. I say they because I had much more effective plans in mind. How about these? Oh, that's so good. That was such a good bomb. I don't have a good place to put this exactly, but I stand by that no game is perfect, and I have yet to find an exception. Jin, you scared him so much he doesn't know what to do with him. Ow, hang on. We're having a moment over here. I need to figure out what this is. What is this? Why is this? It's really damn ridiculous. Hang on, let me put you out of your misery. Why are you there now? With everyone brought together and all geared up, it was finally time to try bringing my uncle home. Honestly, it was guarded pretty poorly compared to what I expected. Something about having a bunch of masters and killing also made things go pretty smoothly. Up until my friend's sudden but inevitable betrayal. My head for feeding his men. And if that's all our friendship is worth, then when the duel should begin, I have but one thing to say. Let's dance, my friend. Let's dance. He has multiple unblockable attacks, some more dangerous than others. Having done some more duels, I was more used to parrying rather than blocking. Sometimes blocking when it's correct, like with kicks. I found that if you fail to parry the first move and begin blocking instead, it's safer just to continue to do so rather than trying to parry. He does have an unblockable spin move that doesn't do a ton of damage, but I absolutely never figured out how to avoid it reliably. Jumping doesn't do it, dodging doesn't do it, dodge rolling doesn't, so what do? Answer? No idea, but if you're sitting on 1 health, it doesn't seem to kill you for reasons that I don't fully understand. His foot will, but his sword spin does not. I tried to prioritize light attacks with him, as he stuns easily enough, and it let me chip away at his health bar in relative safety. He's too fast for me to have felt safe with a ton of heavies, but that one spin aside, pretty fun fight. At the end of it, Jin still tries to make amends, and his supposed friend countered with alerting the enemy. He wouldn't even be collecting a bounty for ratting me out, it was absolutely just out of spite. With 1 health and nowhere to go, though, after defeating this incredibly competent foe. Yeah. Beautiful. Excellent, even. Narrative perfection. Inside is another mandatory assassination, and also my uncle. Finally, we can get out of here. I just need him to stop projecting his ideals on me for a few minutes and we'll be on our way. Up north, the antagonist is committing war crimes to force the hand of the people in a hold. Open the doors or, these captives here. Well, to prove the loyalty of his new converts, he wouldn't be doing it personally, and seriously, this game gets dark. To avoid showing too much, he did it as he was told. But the expression in his face and voice, his everything. The events are disturbing, but this is an incredible scene. To see a broken man doing whatever he believes must be done to be summed up in this tumultuous series of emotions and this one line.
Open the gate! Open the gate!
Words feel paltry in describing such an incredible delivery. Be it through direction or just the talent of the voice actor, I don't know if I can fathom a better read of the line. So simply raw in feeling that the writing didn't matter at all. His voice said so much with so little. And even rewatching the scene to put the video together, I'm in awe and chills continue to run through me. Bravo. Absolutely wonderful. I got shamed for my methodology for saving my uncle's life by my uncle, as he also shamed Yuna, my new best friend. How dare you, sir? For helping to save the man, she only wants to go to the mainland safely with her brother. He says she can do so after she helps him take another castle because the first wasn't enough. She's reasonably not thrilled with that. I found a maternal figure in my life that helped to nurture me when I was young, and she's super against it, but she's also helping me to acquire the last ranged weapon of the game, crafting poison blow darts. A quite an effective method of dispatching foes, at least in theory. I didn't use them a ton, but it was nice to have the option. Truth be told, I didn't often hurt for ammo anymore. See, between quests, I stopped to farm for pelts, and I have the max capacity for pretty much everything. Just for a little added challenge, I'm playing by the rule that I'm not allowed to just buy ammo, and, well, it didn't play a big role before because I was broke, and now it isn't because I have enough ammo to fell a small army who will then drop more ammo. Also, a charm that gives a 40% chance for arrows back on headshots. It's pretty good. Back with Yuna and helping some people as to raise a small army, her brother Taka is taking an admiration both to the ghost and the battlefield. Given that he's blacksmith by trade, it's concerning that he's stepping into the front line, but not much I can do to stop him. For better or worse, though, we had a minute. A minute to stop and watch the world turn by as we opened up for once. Really just existed in the company of a friend. Something that helps just about everyone from time to time. It's good to open up when you can with someone you trust. In the midst of the night, though, the siege of a small town continued and even escalated into an open conflict fought on the front of the locals. Farmers, traders, not combatants, but there are times where you really don't have much of a choice in what you are. So if the choice is to rise to the occasion or perish, well, hard to blame a victim for simply returning the violence they've been given. Near the climax of the conflict was a duel with a dude who lit a sword on fire in addition to using a shield. Whenever it was ablaze, I elected to mostly just stay back. Beyond that, I used a lot of heavy attacks to go through his guard rather than trying to chip at him. It just didn't seem like I was going to have much of a chance to get behind him safely otherwise. All in all, not the hardest of fights, but I can't say that my brain was working at full capacity. I think my mods would be upset if I didn't include this clip. Just hack him up. Hack him up like a good fondue. You may be saying, you don't hack fondue. You melt it. Exactly. And no, I will not elaborate. After is a mandatory melee kill. You'd think the Ghost Dance tutorial after would be one as well, but turns out, nah, you can sort of just dance around like so. Boo! Boo! I'm a ghost! Boo! 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 Oh hey, you can wait it out. Cool. With the common folk feeling broken, Jin felt the opposite, emboldened further. He spurred them on to take life into their own hands. Again, for better or worse. Should you fight for what's right within the world? Absolutely. But should you also know when just to keep your head down for the safety of yourself and those around you? Well, maybe. These aren't soldiers, they're civilians. The enemy is a true army, combatants trained to kill, and painfully so. I'd hesitate to say that this is the right move. It's not the wrong one, but I'm not sure if it's correct either. Lord Shimura and I went off to create a distraction for an ally of his to get a message out for reinforcements from the mainland. If he could just stop running into conflict, though, just long enough to at least sort of maintain the element of surprise, that'd be great. All is fine though, for you see, I have watched it out for a new weapon. This thing is basically an automatic ground to anything I want missile platform fully capable of dealing a ludicrous amount of death wherever I should point it. All for the low cost of ridiculous fire rates and infinite ammo. One of the biggest downsides to a weapon like this is reload time, and this literally doesn't have one. Why can't we just take this one absolutely everywhere? This is amazing. Also, weird timing, but Shimura keeps bringing up his desire to adopt me. Like, he has papers written and whatnot. He's asked the Shogun if he can go through with that so I can legally be his son. Yuna is finally being allowed to leave to the new life that she worked for since she possibly could, and Jin is asking her to help one last time. Wouldn't recommend it. She refused like the smart person that she is, and Jin accepted it like the good person that he is. I'm off to go kill my old friend on my lonesome then. Or that would be the case if Taka didn't show up. He wants to help any way that he can, just create a distraction, he says. I did my best to defend him, throwing caution and explosives to the wind. He's just not built for this kind of environment. Even with the steed to aid him, I thought best to cover his retreat in corpses to avoid the worst. I wasn't the only one starting to resort to dirty tricks, though. After finding Ryuzo, I was attacked from behind, because Jin tunnel visions this guy pretty hard. Fitting, in a sense. I awoke to an unwelcome conversation with the antagonist, and also Taka, so we can probably all guess where this is going. He wants me to persuade the island into surrender, following him instead of the new ghost that's given them hope in all of this mess. Taka is told he can go if he kills me, he attacks the enemy, pays with his life, it hurt a lot emotionally. I then broke out really easily because of course that comes right after it would have saved the life of a fantastic man. For those events, I killed the men holding me here, Ryuzo's men. Of course, Yuna shows up to find out what happened, and rather than flee, they choose to stand and avenge Taka. And for all of the flaws within the characters, and I mean character flaws, not that they're badly made, Jin doesn't back down when a homie needs help. Ain't no god great enough that's gonna stop him from doing the best that he can to back her up. It's incredible both that she blames him, acknowledges that it's not his fault, blames herself, and just... she goes through a roller coaster of feelings all so quickly and still believably. I don't love everyone in this game, but they feel so damned human. After it was just time to live, time to mourn the dead. Cinematic games are a big thing these days, and I'm not opposed to them, not at all, but it's hard to put into words when a game just gets it right. When it's not just trying to show some big set piece, it's putting you in the grime and the mud that is human emotion, stopping to feel when things are hard, when they're real, and hell, I may not have lived these events. I may not be a real-world combatant, but a great game has a way of making you forget that when you lose someone. The dawn that would follow would be one of a new siege. This time, we the aggressor, marching on a home that was once ours. A woman in grief who lost her family, too hurt to look outside of herself for long. An archer, judgmental, concerned that we're moving in the wrong direction. A monk, simply doing the best that he can in the circumstances. A woman who's been with me through everything. Never judgmental, only pragmatic, and my uncle. So desperate to love me for the person that he thinks I am. Always wanting me to be my best, but who's to say what that is? Well, I am. I'm to say what the best me is. When faced with the real me, the most effective me, he was ashamed. Slowly, ever slowly, Jin was growing against his uncle, actively standing up to him, if only a little. Honor be damned though, this thing is awesome! Later into the conflict though, we'd witness a large number of men perish for the sake of handling things the right way. But that, well, ironically, that was a bridge too far. Jin said no so forcefully that it scared the facial hair off of Shimura. Yeah, I saw that. The dude, though, pulls out a really dumb moral equivalence that just doesn't fly in any realistic sense. Killing people? Not cool. Don't do that. Killing someone who's killing people? You know, sometimes it's necessary. You can't make wide-sweeping judgments like that about what he's doing. It's not the same. Context matters. As I snuck into their encampment to poison and kill them from the shadows, you have to ask, what is more moral? To hold the high ground and never dirty your hands, or accept that people are dying? Good, innocent people are dying, and far worse even. But keeping your hands clean, they'll continue to suffer and fall. You make no sacrifice but judge others for decisive action? There will be suffering either way. The only difference between our choices is that I chose for the guilty party to be the recipient. Speaking of, though, I found my buddy. All of his men are dead by my hand, and he, having nothing, wants me to lie to my allies and say he was a spy the whole time. He wants forgiveness, but of course, he refuses to answer for his crimes in a non-violent fashion, so if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. So their relationship became strained years ago when Ryuzo had a chance to become a samurai. A duel between the two of them. He seems to blame Jin for the misfortunes of his life. He says that it was his chance to prove himself, but also seems to loathe Jin for winning. Angered by the fact that he wasn't good enough and he blames someone else for it, but I don't throw matches. Not on purpose. If I give anything less than my best, it means nothing. There are some things in life that you can't have for simply wanting it hard enough. If you wanted to prove that you were better, then you had to be better. There is no substitute, and I wouldn't shame you or anyone else by such a dreadful show as throwing our bout. It would make victory meaningless, but instead of reflecting on his shortcomings, it was my fault. Well, then the next match will be my fault too. Truth be told, this took a while to get. His moveset has more unblockables, some faster attacks, and he's all around more dangerous than the last time. Much like a wounded dog. Also, this game has a serious issue in the duels where Jin will just swing in seemingly random directions, and it makes it really hard to hit your target when they're suddenly behind you. That being said, the parry windows are pretty generous in this game. Truth be told, it wasn't until the Tengu fight that I learned that what felt like an eternity ago now, but well, now you can hopefully actually see the fruits of what I discovered instead of the swirl of birds. So realistically, the melee system comes with some bad and also a parry window that I'm not technically inclined enough to explain. Just know that I spent an unfortunate amount of time trying to Sekiro parry when I swear it's closer to a turn-based RPG when you get the feel for it. This is hyperbole, but I really hope you get the point. With him dead after probably over an hour, as well as a bunch of people I poisoned, Daddy Dearest didn't seem too happy, despite the fact that I saved his men from what absolutely would have been a slaughter. And here it is. The exchange to explain the whole conflict here. One of us values human lives, and the other values doing things by the books. Well, my guy, books are written and edited by the people who continue to live, so tell me, what do you think will happen to your world when you let your authors die? Because that's not something I'm willing to test for myself. They really show their colors here with Shimura trying to get someone to take the fall for Jin because it would hurt Shimura to do otherwise, where Jin sacrifices himself to protect Yuna, choosing to let himself be imprisoned, their bond of almost father and son burned by his hands, and I'm left to face judgment. Of course, that couldn't be the end because homies help homies, and I've got places to be. The trek to a friend's side would cost me my horse and a lot of blood. Given the incoming blizzard, my wounds, my clothes, and just everything, I'm lucky to be waking up the same way as at the beginning. Just glad she pulled me out of the wake of death again. Within the new area, I would of course need more allies. Have one of these. You got him. Don't worry guys, you got that corpse real good. The enemy has collected a ton of the poison I used, and they're planning on using it to march on the mainland. Jin, being the man that he is, decides to inform Shimura of this via message left in his home. Not being spotted, not hurting a hair on anyone's head. This before, of course, the retaking of our home. I could regale you with shots fired. Those carefully measured versus my reserves and placed into the hides of men. But if I'm being honest, it's more of the same. And by now, the same is plenty easy. With the sheer number of tools that I have at my disposal and how effective they are, well, the only real challenges left are those of the melee variety. But real they are indeed. It's a long time coming, so let's get into this. The Kotenkan fight is comprised of primarily unblockable spear attacks. Each has an incredible amount of range, some are at least mildly slow, but the majority track better than any hound ever could. There are some really weird instances of things dealing damage when, as far as I can tell, things aren't really going on. A lot of his attacks just look like he's moving, but he's actually dealing monumental levels of damage. The worst offender is his spin up to his downward slam attack. I swear the moment it starts, you're either out of range or you're screwed. There's basically nothing in between. It's just so fast. And this isn't even speaking of his one-handed phase, where he has basically no downtime between combos. Combos that are unblockable, unparryable. And he can more or less slip into that whenever he wants in the middle of normal combat. He has a healthy mix of slow and fast moves to always keep you guessing in the worst kind of way. It wouldn't be so bad, but I just don't have a solid answer for a lot of his kit. My one saving grace is that heavy moves will stun him on contact, so I can get some of those in before he parries me, and I can usually bail. I found that it was even better to use a couple of light attacks, then spam heavy until he pushes me away, but I do mean a couple. Too many and he pulls out another move altogether, and the less of his kit you see, the better. I was able to figure out that it'd make for faster and thus more reliable kills thanks to a friend of mine that has chosen to be credited as, and I quote, Secretary Bitch. So if you're listening, genuinely, thank you. I was using heavy attacks for the stun periods, but said Secretary Bitch was tracking a lot of stats for me during the fight. How long each attempt was taking, how long they were together, how many there were. With those numbers, I knew that it was just faster. Go figure. But then what? Well, you have to commit a moveset to heart because 3 hits is death, or might as well be. Dodges just straight up don't work against most of his kit for some reason. You regularly can't hit him because Jin decides to swing in random directions. You're fundamentally fighting the game here because it just expects you to have skills that I don't. I'm playing on hard, so it's not like I even get access to a reasonable amount of healing. One of my only saving graces? His audio's buggy and you can reset it with attacks at the beginning.
I will avenge the people of Tsushima.
Vengeance! 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 The petty wisdom of a child.
Otherwise, it was get good or get out. Part of me felt bad for how easy the ranged weapons are to use. Another part of me knew that the melee being anything other than brutal would make for a really bad handwave. What's the point in making things hard if you're just gonna make them easy again? Well, I streamed most of this run on Twitch. Truth be told, I've gone back and forth a lot about which platform I'd prefer to be streaming on. I don't know what I'm doing in that regard because I'm many things, but professional is not one of them. But, well, according to Secretary Bitch, I fought this man for about 2 hours and 47 minutes, which arguably doesn't sound that bad except for the fact that it took 188 attempts. So, I'll let you be the judge. If hand-waving the duels has been earned. Because there were multiple that took over an hour, but this one was soul-crushing. When I started, it felt unwinnable. I had no answer to anything, and truth is, I still didn't have anything hard-coded in. It was all positioning. Doing things before he did things. Other fights behave reactively, but him? You better have your next few moves already planned and executed, because once he starts doing something, it's too late to change your mind. But I got better at it. The worst part is that I got better, and if it could be done, then done it must be. But on that 188th attempt, finally. Ah! 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 If you could clip that for me, miss! Fucking one hell but a goddamn dream! Ah! And just like that, nothing could ruin it for me. It usually feels good to finally clear a hurdle, but especially getting to do so among friends, well, I felt weightless. After is a boss fight where I just unloaded all of my ammo into him. It's scripted, it can't be done with ranged stuff. You have to input a melee attack for cinematic purposes, and you know what? I don't care. I'm good. I feel accomplished. Finally, mercifully, he went down for good. The island was saved from the main menace, and those that would come next would come broken, more easily dispatched. But that wouldn't be the end. After it all, in our old sparring grounds, I was labeled a traitor, and my old man was tasked by the Shogun with killing me in the name of honor. So, duel we must. I can at least indulge him one last time. Despite being the final boss, he's parryable, unlike the last one, so in only 12 attempts in 13 minutes, well, like his ideals, he just doesn't live up to the pressure. He claims that killing me is his punishment, but again, he puts himself above others. He's willing to throw countless people away for his own sake. No price too great to hold your own head high at the end of the day? I'll give it to you. You're not afraid to die. Willing to give your life at a moment's notice in the name of honor, but you're terrified of living. Really living. Anyone can find a cause to fight to the death for. Show me your conviction. Show me that you're willing to live instead. Through all of the hardships, through all of the heartache, no matter how difficult it gets, because life is terrifying, and dying is the simple way out. Everything I do is for the people. I don't glorify death, I live for the people. It's sad that you're too far gone to see the difference. Tradition is a shield that's more often than not used to deflect blame. to hide cowardice eyes from gazing upon their own actions, to avoid making your own decisions. You're not brave for following the status quo when the world has already passed you by. You're a relic standing in a pool of blood filled via victims of your outdated mentality. I won't join their stain upon the world by dying for your cause. And when I kill, it will be of necessity, not for your honor. You wish for a warrior's death? Start by leading a life that's worth protecting in the first place. We're done here, Shimura. And with that, I'd like to thank my lovely channel members for your continued support. It's been a long time coming, but it was fantastic to finally get to play this absolutely incredible game. If you're interested in streams becoming a more regular thing, let me know. It's nice to share the journey, despite my rather inconsistent schedule. And if not, then I hope the bits and pieces of live commentary weren't too distracting. Regardless, though, I hope you enjoyed your time here. You probably know how to use social media, and I hope that means I get to hear your thoughts now and in future outings. Until then, remember to stay safe, spread some kindness in the world, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.